Howdy y'all, this is Dwight. Welcome back to part 2 of making a basic trapper pocket knife. This here is where we left off from our previous video. I got the parts just kind of fit up to show kind of where things are at. I'll go ahead and take this one liner off so we can see the workings. As we can see, the back spring I left long, though I did shape the walk down right to the scribe line and the inside of the back spring as well, with the exception of the relief area. As we can see, I stayed off my scribe line right there. And of course the spine is well oversized. And again, on the blade I shaped the cutting edge to the scribe line as well as the clip, and I left the spine of it a little bit proud, as we can see right there, and the tang square is slightly proud as well. And as far as the liner material, I left proud. I showed the spine of it in the previous video, and I've actually left the inside portion proud as well, because if you see, my cutting edge is down here and the inside of the handle is taller. I usually try to make that a nice seamless flow, or really close to it. So where am I going to go from here? I'm going to take everything back apart, and as we can see, I have my pattern. I am now done with my pattern. I do not make things exactly to my pattern, with the exception of a couple key points that I pointed out. Some folk need to make their parts exactly to their pattern and go from there. My skill level and brain doesn't function like that. I just have to get things close, and each knife I work in and make things fit. And doing it that way, me personally, I've thrown away a lot less knife parts. Everybody's different on how they need to go about things, so that's something everyone will have to figure out for themselves. I'm just showing how I go about it. Okay, now we are almost ready to fit up the blade and the back spring, and etc. Before I do that, and admittedly I forget to do this sometimes, but I'm going to file in my sharpening notch, because if you forget to do this before fit up, you can accidentally take material off of that face, which will then lower this point down and will mess your fit up, and you'll have to go around and adjust it again. So when I remember, of course, I'm going to file in my sharpening notch before we do the fit up. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm here at my little vise here on my workbench. I'm just going to firmly clamp the blade into it, and I just have one of these cheap triangle files, and I will proceed to file this in. Okay, I'm going to take this out, and there's my sharpening notch, or choil, whatever you want to call it. There are faster ways of doing that, of course. I just don't mind filing it in with a little triangle file. So there we go. Alright, now we're ready to go about fitting our pocket knife up. And I went ahead and just kind of quick assembled it. Of course, the positions aren't close. The tip of the knife is high. Of course, half stop, that looks reasonable. It's fairly close to a 90 degrees in the half stop, which is just fine. And of course, open It isn't even close to being parallel along the spine there. I do want to mention real quick, I personally will get the open position set before I worry too much about the half stop and closed. Now, if you don't have any jigs and whatnot to go by, you can get like this, the end of the back spring needs trimmed, which will then let the blade come up like so. And you get your blade position how you want it to where it looks like it's parallel nicely. Then you can take your scribe or razor blade or something, hold the back spring in firmly, and scribe a line along the edge of your liner. And then whenever you go into the half stop and the closed position, then you can see, as an example, I threw a quick scribe line on there. You can see where the scribe line will end up at your liners. Because you want the open, as an example, to be like this, where the scribe line is right against the liners. Okay, then half stop, you would want the scribe line a tickle high, and the closed position, you would also want that to be a tickle high. And the reason for that is when you put the knife under tension, the geometry of things change a little bit. So for final fit up, which is after heat treat, when it's safe to put the back spring under tension, that is when you finish the final fitment, and you can work on getting the scribe line work down to the liner in each position while it's under tension. Of course, that takes a lot of assembly and disassembly to do that, which quite honestly, as I'm going to bring up next, is my homemade Ruple jig. It's the same thing for the Ruple jig. After heat treat for the final fit up, that is done by hand. The Ruple jig is not meant to get the fit up perfect in all the positions. Use it to get the open position set where you want it, and then with the rise fall gauge, then you can get the half stop in the closed position. Well, they say half stop 5 thousandths proud and closed 10 thousandths proud. Then after heat treat, then you work them half stop and closed position in until the back spring is flush with the liners. Now I do want to show, we can see this is a homemade Ruple jig. The Ruple jig you can get by with something that's homemade, not perfect. This by no means is perfect. If we look, the bottom board's bucked. My clamping board, it ain't flush. If you look at my rise fall gauge here, it is not parallel. It is shooting upwards at an angle. And I just got scrap pieces of metal underneath these 2 blocks of wood that I got penstock in. And to keep these from moving, I just got a large C-clamp on it. Okay. This isn't pretty, but what is important is when I get, let me get this apart here. Loosen the C-clamp, which allows these 2 blocks to move side to side, which means I can get the liner on the pins here. If I can find there we go. There we go. Got the liner on. We'll get the back spring on. And then we'll put the blade on. Okay. Now we make sure it's pressed down flat. I can slide this front to back to get that to land on the back spring where I want it, which would be approximately right there. And then I tighten this big C-clamp, and now these blocks of wood are clamped and can't move. That is one of the most important things is to have a way to keep this from moving around. Now, if we look at things, we can see this doesn't sit 100% flush, but it doesn't move around like side to side, or so that is the most important thing. And the gauge, even though it's not perfectly parallel, it hits the back spring dead center. That way when it's moving around, it's moving the gauge just fine. Even though it might not sit flat, it's not moving, and that's the most important part of a Ruple gauge. Because with the Ruple gauge, I like getting the open position set. And then I'll go around, and then the half stop, 5 thousandths proud, and the closed position, you can aim for 10 thousandths. I'll usually go a little less because I'm familiar with this pattern. I'll go between 5 and 10 usually. And then that's all the Ruple gauge is meant to do as far as fit up, which I take it a step further and I use it for spring tension as well, which I'll show when the time comes. But first I do the setup. Okay, now before we go over to the grinder, we will see which position is lowest. Of course, open's going to be the highest because it doesn't even come around. See if we can get where we can see. Okay, closed. Even though it's not setting in correctly or any of that, that's lowest. So I'm going to zero that out. If we can see, I got it there on 0. Half stop is 20 thousandths proud, because when we move the back spring up, which would be out from the liners, the needle moves that way. So the farther the back spring moves down in, the farther it falls down. So, and of course, open is way out of whack. Okay, now the first step I'm going to do is, we know we need to shorten the back spring because the blade don't even come around. The initial step I'm going to do is take my scribe, and even though this back square area right here isn't 100% how we want it, I'm going to scribe a line on this back spring to make it even with the bottom of my back square, because we can bring the blade around then. I need to have my hands free. Okay, and when we get the blade in the straight position or really close to it, I'll try to hold this up to where we can see. Okay, right in there's really close to straight. We can see the scribe line is still past the spine point. So we know we're not going to make the back spring too short right off the bat, but it will bring the blade up, and then we can start working on the back square, if that makes any sense. So let's get over to the belt grinder and we will start removing material. Got my Ruple jig over here. I usually just set it on my rest at the grinder, and as we can see, got the end of the back spring pretty close to parallel with the bottom part of the walk back square of the blade there. Now it still doesn't open, to be up parallel yet. So now this is going to give us some room to start shaping this tang back square some now. So I'm going to be taking some material off this section right here, and I'll take a little bit off the bottom here as well, but I'm going to worry about this one right here to begin with. And on the belt grinder, excuse the shaky camera work here, over here on the side you can see right in here, try to get the light over here better, there we go. I have cut in an angle on my flat platen here, and the reason for that is so as I can put in the blade and that square at an angle if I need to, because if that comes straight down and is square like it normally comes after you buy it, you're only able to go in square. You can't go in at an angle if necessary, and that does come in handy, being able to pivot apart around the edge of your platen a little bit like that. So I'm going to dress up that square right there like I mentioned, and we'll be right back. Okay, one thing I want to point out, I've dressed up the tang back square. Now I'm going to see how it looks in the half stop position. As we can see, the back spring is now longer than the bottom of the back square face down there now, and our blade is still not parallel to the liner. If we lift that up, still drop down, we still want it to come up some. So this is one of the things I do to try to make things look clean as far as a finished product. I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit more off the end of the back spring. That way it is, if it isn't perfectly straight with the bottom of this tang square, that's fine, but I want it to be reasonably close if possible. So instead of continuing to take material off of this area, I'm going to take a little bit off the end of the back spring now. Alright, I wanted to show where we're at here. I've got the open position pretty good. I'll hold the blade in place and raise the back spring. We can see that's really close to parallel. There is a couple things I want to talk about that is important, and the main one here is, if we notice, we have a gap in this corner right here. Okay, general rule of thumb is we want 2 points of contact. We don't want it laying flat on the bottom there, and in fit up we don't want this laying flat. Now the reason why we don't want this laying flat during fit up is once the blade goes under tension, this walk is going to go from this plane and it's going to tweak up onto an angled plane, because right in here is the majority of your flex for when this goes under tension. If this starts off hitting perfectly flush, then like right now I'm just hitting right here. If this is flush and goes under tension, then this corner is what's going to be hitting, and you're going to create a little bit of a gap right here. It might not be much, but looking at the spine when it's all finished out, you'll have a dark line running across that, and that tells me that the back spring and the blade is not touching at the top, it's touching down here. So you got to take that into account. Once this is under tension for a really good lock, Having a majority of that touch, in my opinion, is fine, but that's for under tension, not right now, because we want to keep the spine as smooth and continuous looking as possible. Okay, so now things have changed. I re-zeroed it out. We got the open position 0, and we take half stop. That's like 22 thousandths proud, and the closed is right around 18 thousandths proud. So whenever you take material off the half stop, that's going to bring this point of contact in a little bit. So we're going to have to dress this up a little bit more as we go. But for now, basically, I'm just going to bring the half stop in to about 10 thousandths, because we want half stop to be 5 thousandths. And I'm going to bring the closed in, I'm going to bring it down about 8 to 10, around 8 thousandths, which will get it 10 thousandths proud. And that will hopefully get our tip down in. Because to bring the tip down, I'm going to take material off of this section right here, and that will lower the blade down. If the blade is against the back spring like that, then we take the material off back here, and that will raise the tip out. So I'm going to take material off of here. I'm going to take material off the half stop, and then I will be back and show you where we're at. Okay, here we go. I've got things fit up pretty well how I want them. As we can see, 0 has moved around a bit, because to get everything where I want it, had to go back over a few things. But we have the open, they're right at 0. We come over here to the half stop, we're right at 5 thousandths. Come here to the closed position, and we got the tip down there tucked in, and that is right at the 8,000 mark there. So I am now ready to see about setting the pretension. Now, how I go about setting the pretension, and I do it this way just because I can control every time to be more accurate. Okay, in the open position, I start off at 0. Okay, I'm going to want to come in 40, I'm going to do 45 thousandths. Okay, I'm still holding the back spring close to into the blade. So what that's going to do is, if I take the blade off here, that will lower the back spring 45 thousandths farther down into the liners. Oh, and I'll show you what I go. Okay, so I've got it set on my gauge. Just going to take a little bit of cheap blue painter's tape. I'm going to take the back spring off. I'm going to throw a piece of tape on my liner right behind the blade. Take another little piece, and I'm going to put it on my back spring about so, and just wrap it around. Okay, I'm going to put that back on. I'm just going to take some Jenepe super glue from the old Wally World, and I'm going to put super glue on the tape right there like so. I'm going to, and now the sun is glaring a little bit on the gauge, so I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see, but I'm going to bring the back spring down into the blade, take the blade off, and then ease the back spring down until it's on 0. And then I will press down on it to set the super glue. Okay, and super glue is quick. That's one thing I like about it. Okay, see, we're right on 0. It might be just part of a thousandths off, but that's okay. We now have this super glued. I'm now going to take this over to the drill press, and I'll show you that. Over here at my drill press, which is right next to my bench, and I'm just going to set the whole thing there in my drill press. Line the back spring hole up with my drill bit. Okay, I'm going to turn the drill press on. Okay, and there we go. Now I've drilled the hole in my liner 40 thousandths down in compared to the back spring. Now one nice thing I like about doing it like that, get this wiggled off here, is using painter's tape and super glue. I have no mess to clean up on my liner, which I nicely dropped on the floor, and I have no mess to clean up on my back spring. So now all I'm going to need to do is put this on my other liner, and I'm going to pin each hole, and then I will drill down through here into my other second liner. And here we are. I've quick assembled the knife again, and if I can get it, you can just see the difference in the back spring hole and the liner hole there. And that there is the 45 thousandths. Of course, some folks will just judge it by looking in the hole when they drill or whatnot. I like using that because I'm more consistent. Of course, our open position now is, we're not 100%, but we're close. But if we look down the liners, we can see my liner is a little bit wavy, so that's going to have to get flattened out. So by the time I get done with all that, things will be where they need to be. Our half stop is looking pretty good. Try to get out of the sun glare here, maybe. There we go. Got a nice 90-degree half stop, and then in the close position, our blade is tucked down in there. Now one nice thing about this style of clip, again, when the knife goes under tension, the walk is going to change its plane. So that is going to raise the tip of the knife up. Okay, so we can see I'm down inside my liners right now quite nicely. If that would so happen to raise above ever so much, I can just grind in my clip just a little bit deeper and make up for any difference that I need to. I think it should be okay. It'll be close. Of course, later on the build, I'll show how that turns out. But overall, it's come together pretty good. And as a quick demonstration, here is a line I scribed here on the back spring in the close position. We can tell it is right against the liner. Okay, half stop. We can see there it is against the liner, and it's off the liner just a little bit. And same here in the closed. If I have a full focus, you can see that gray line in between the scribe line and the liner. That is proud. The closed position was proud 8 thousandths, and the open position was proud 5 thousandths. So there isn't near as much of a gray line in the half stop, but it's still there. And then of course the difference here in the closed, the scribe line is right down there against the liner. So that's how it looks if you use the scribe line method. Just the basic fit up. Zeroed out and open, 5 proud and half stop, and I did 8 proud and closed, which 10 is traditionally what folks go for. Okay, that will do it for this video. I'm going to be needing to put in my nail nick, and of course heat treating after that, I do believe. So that should be what we'll be up to in the next part of this series. I do appreciate everyone stopping by and watching. Till the next one, y'all take care.